immediately, even before the first meeting. So he and Nuno have been walking the property, and I asked them to specifically focus on the capital improvement projects that we have, but to pick up any other issues that he became alerted to as he was walking through. So Joe, and he sent me materials this afternoon. I forwarded them on to everyone.
I got it. I read it. It was very thorough and good.
Okay.
And some of the things that Nuno's been discussing over the past year or 2 years or whatever. So.
Right, but we need a nudge. So Joe, you're on. Okay.
Okay. Let me just. I apologize. Let me just pull that up. I thought it was going to be on the screen.
I didn't get that attachment, so I'll just sort of follow along.
Okay, sorry about that. I thought I included you in the email, but
Sure, I could send it to Nuno.
Sure, no worries.
I just did. I just forwarded it to you, Nuno.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so Nuno and I walked the property about 2 weeks ago, and we addressed. I wanted to take a look at some of the capital projects that were in the architect's report, and just from basic conversation in the last meeting, and I agree the gas line replacement is something that needs to be addressed immediately. I put a few recommendations that we should start communicating with residents. Sometimes that's what delays these projects, because Con Edison and the plumber need to get into every unit and check the valves for their stoves. So if we begin the communication process, knowing a schedule that, let's just say, throw a date out there, if the plumber was going to be there June 30th, that there's a time frame that they could get into the apartment and do the final sign off and complete the project, because I believe Con Edison or the plumber can't until every single unit, until they go into every unit. Am I correct on that, Nuno?
That is correct.
Okay. I'm glad to hear Nuno went down there and they opened the vents. They started that process. We should do regular underground checks for moisture, because if we're going to invest in gas lines could generally last 40 to 50 years, and they failed on this particular development in less time than that. We should. This is something none of us should ever be involved with again, for replacing gas lines. So in order to be sure of that, I think there should be some type of regular reporting, regular investigation of the moisture underground at the property, which I believe Nuno already started to do from his report. Any questions about the gas line?
I have a question for Nuno. Do we have a contractor lined up to do this?
The gas work? Yes.
Yes. Okay. All right. So it's just a matter of us now choosing 1 or 2 buildings and getting started.
Well, the plan initially was, we were going to open up the vents, and if we smelled a hint of gas, or if when we were down in the crawl space we saw anything kind of that really stood out, we would tackle that building first. Fortunately for us, we did not have any gas odor, and we didn't notice anything out of the ordinary. So it's really going to come down to possibly just doing a building and notifying everyone appropriately. And what we've actually done in the last building, since we had time and it wasn't an emergency, is you really only have about 2 to 3 hours of downtime in these apartments, because we just do all the final connections, and then we do the pressure testing, make sure all the outlets in the actual apartment themselves are up to standard. And then we have Con Edison and the town both sign off on it and get the blue card, and then kind of go on, and the permit is closed.
Barry, have we money in our budget for 1 building for the whole project? What did we anticipate budget-wise for this project?
That's a good question. I think, what were we saying? Is it 30,000 a line and 30? What did you say it was?
About 28 and change. So I think we budgeted about 119,000 for the year.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's money in the reserves for this particular project. After this project, then we can sit down and look at everything else that's out there, that and then apply back and forth. But we are fortunate that we will stop paying the mortgage payment in October. We'll have $22,000 a month. So we'll be able to really gear up for the windows and, as it's appropriate. We'll match that up.
This is really
with
important
Joe's
from a
report.
safety issue, correct? This is a real priority, as I understand
Right,
it.
but they didn't find any smell. So, but it's 120,000. There's money to do. We should just do, I mean, they're not going to do it all at once. They're going to do it. What's he going to do? One a month? What do you plan?
Well, if we do, we should probably do 2 a month so we can finish it before the heating season begins.
That's a great plan.
So two a month would mean that we would get the project finished this year.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, you want to finish in September.
I'm sorry, Joe, I didn't hear you.
Yeah, to be comfortable, I think heating season October 15th, so, but you'd want to finish for mid-September just to leave a little room just in case there's any, technical issues.
Okay, this is,
We have
guess,
June.
a
We
priority.
have July and August.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't have that much time
Yeah, so let's get,
to go for September 15th.
that's a priority, so that we'll push on that. Get that done.
So then I would need a transfer from the reserve to at least begin or at least put down the deposit on these.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, Barrett, you can authorize that, or do we need a motion?
I think we should do a motion, but just tell me how much you need and when. Email me how much you need and when, and I'll do it.
Okay.
How's that? I mean, you want to do 3 a month? Can the plumber handle 3 and get it done?
Handle as many as we throw at him.
Well, I think we throw as many as we need to get done before the heating season.
Okay.
So I'd say at least 3 a month then. Go for 3 in July and 3 in August. Can you do that?
Why don't we just transfer the amount that's needed? So
Yeah, fine. That's what he's going to tell me.
Okay, I'll let you know.
All right, so do we have an authorization to transfer the fund, authorize Barry and Nuno to transfer whatever funds are necessary from the reserve to cover
I
this
think it's going to be
project?
about $120,000, what you said. So
Okay,
I'll just-
120,000.
I mean,
Motion,
motion to approve.
okay.
it's unanimous. Okay,
Doesn't someone need to second it, Dolores?
Second,
Oh, Joe.
that's
Okay.
second, right. We have a two-person team here going on that, and it's unanimous. Okay,
Okay.
all right. Okay, Joe, keep going.
okay. The windows would be the second category that I believe is the second most important thing at the property. They're original windows. There's water entering the units. I recommend obtaining an architect or engineer who designs windows specifically for this region, for the Northeast, for a property that is somewhat close to water, and could deal with nor'easters and conditions like that, and have the right windows installed for the property. You don't want to put something in that's too tight. You could cause a mold condition inside a unit, or obviously you don't want to throw heat out the window as well. So I think we should start the process to hire someone to do the design for it, and then properly bid it out to to companies who do windows, with the architect or engineers overseeing the process of construction.
How do we identify architects who are familiar with a major window installation?
There's I'm sure someone in the town, building inspector or another area of the town board has had to do one of the municipality buildings. It'd be good to start with the contact that's from the town, so at least we know, you have a little bit of a history. One of the things I did recommend is reaching out to other local multifamily residential buildings that have done windows recently. Certainly, Nuno, Gramerton might have a relationship with other buildings or other property management companies. Someone you could be connected with on LinkedIn. So, just to try to get a reputable person who has a good rapport with other property, with other properties similar to the Homics.
No, have any of the properties you managed done a major window replacement?
Yeah, I've done a window replacement, and I think some of the other guys here have done a few window projects in the last 5 years.
Okay.
We're actually doing I think 3 buildings right now are doing windows. So I've done one with Antonucci. He does all the wind testing, make sure they're up to code and spec, and for this type of construction. And he's familiar with the property. He did our siding and roofing engineering reports as well. He can provide you references of other buildings nearby that, et cetera. And then in terms of actually the window vendors and whoever's constructing the windows, obviously hopefully by then we'll be in person possibly, and you can kind of, the vendors can come and bring samples and show you addresses, and then you can visit them in person if necessary. The window project, it's a long process.
Right.
The engineer proposal that I included in there, it provides services up until we select the vendor. Then we're sort of on our own, and we can discuss then the installation. How we manage the installation.
Do we could actually use the architect to also manage the installation?
We can certainly do that. We'll have to talk to Nathaniel if he has someone there, but it's a window replacement project is sort of a lot of clerical, sort of, setting up appointments, then you keep a spreadsheet on what day this person was, et cetera. So we can actually have him amend his proposal to include till the project completion, but the cost is astronomical. We can sort of maybe do a per diem. He swings by once a week just to make sure the project is moving in the right direction. He's able to do that as well.
There might also have to be a pre-inspection as well, because sometimes that when you do a window replacement, if there's a unit that had a lot of damage from water, it could have rotted out the sill, the jambs, and different parts of the window. So I think when they go to install, they would want to know that. So there might, I've been involved with one large window project, and we had to go in and do that just to make sure.
Yeah,
So
I mean, they would know because they're doing the measurements. So, yeah. So
Lars, are we required? The board is required to get more than one bid on a project like this?
I don't know if we're bound to, but I think as a general practice, we should. Yeah.
Yeah, it should be at least 3.
Yeah.
Sometimes go before, because somebody might not qualify insurance wise, or might not, have a similar product, or could be disqualified for whatever reason. Could be a bad recommendation. Sometimes it's worth to ask for 4, and to ensure you'll at least have 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this is a project we're going to do next year, so we have a little more time to do some of the homework on engineering, other buildings, and so forth.
Well, I'd make a recommendation that we at least receive a proposal from the engineer of a prototype of a window, what it would cost for the plans for his or her services, and then at least from there, maybe we could even have a budget so we could properly plan, the process. Because as mentioned prior by Barry, if there's 22,000 additional dollars per month, and that's going to continue into next year, there's a possibility of just self-funding this project that way, because it's not going to be a 2-week process. It's going to be a long process, and it would be nice if there's a way to to not have to dig into reserve for it and plan for it. I really have no idea how much the project would cost. I think it'd be great if we knew how much the architect fees were, and have a ballpark number for what the windows would cost going into 2022.
Okay, we did get one proposal, so that Nuno sent shortly. He just sent it. It's the last item on the agenda one. So take a look at that for us, Joe, when you get a chance.
Okay.
Yeah, if you want to have a discussion with me, Yumi and Nathaniel, I can even get a sample window spec for you if you want of a similar property, if you want that. But I will reach out to Joe Comito in the town to see who's else's, architects and engineers other people have, used in the past and how they fared.
The last thing I would just mention about the windows is if Nuno, if you could look into, I'm sure you've worked with NYSERDA before on projects. There might be some type of grants or credits that they give out for any energy savings type of project. Every dollar helps, so they might be able to give some type of credit for every window that we replace, and they might also be a great resource to find vendors who install windows in multiple dwellings and multifamily homes.
I took a quick look at that website and it seemed very geared to individual people. But I wrote an email this evening to our Assemblyman Steve Otis, told him what we needed to do and asked him to give us heads up on any kind of funding that he would be aware of state funding. And I'll write to Catherine Parker tomorrow, who's our county legislator, and ask her the same question.
That's great.
Laura, the Congressman Bowman's office is also working with local organizations on infrastructure projects as well.
Okay.
Okay.
Do we have Sabrina? We've had the town has had some contact with him, right? And has just funded something for the town.
He's offered, we haven't gotten money yet, but he's
Okay.
offered to support a project.
Okay, so you could fill me in on the info for how to proceed to contact and inquire about that.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Diana. Okay.
Yeah, sometimes these things are tax credits, and we don't really need any tax credits. So.
A lot of time, exactly, Barry. That's generally tax credits, but sometimes they do have especially earlier in the year, they have some grants, but then people kind of, properties kind of gobble that up early in the year.
Yeah, because I did my windows and there was a tax credit on my tax return, not any money. So.
Okay. Joe, keep going.
Okay.
Okay.
The exterior decking, there's that's kind of right up there with the windows. I just windows edges it out, slightly, but after looking through the property and seeing some of the concrete piers there's some photos in the back of the report of the concrete piers and how some of the timbers are supporting the deck. I recommend we utilize a structural engineer to do a report just to make sure that these decks are safe. Because just from my eyes looking at it, the way it was constructed, it's off center. There's some there's some issues and conditions with the wood. The screws are coming up. There's possible splinter issues. There's a lot that has to be done there, but this would be another large project. But I'd like to know if there's anything we could do just to, keep the deck safe for the next year or two until obviously we finish the gas lines and the window project.
I'm pretty sure, Barry, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we approved in the budget for this year $62,000 for the improvements to the deck. I have that in my note. And I have new deck summer 2021 $62,000.
Yeah, that was prior to the lumber market going up like 800%.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the availability too.
Yeah. So,
is there any way you could my deck was falling apart, but I painted it and stained it. I think I stabilized it for a while, but is there any way you could do something like that?
Yeah, I think there's some of that, but there's a couple of areas where either the ground is shifted or the way it's supported. I'd feel better if someone took a look at it and maybe we might have to utilize some fundings to shore it and make sure none of the decking's going to cave in. That would be the first item. And if we have to spend any funds, I would spend it that way, and then begin to, work on the cosmetics and the aesthetics of the decking. I mean, it might be, I mean, Nuno, I'd ask you to do some type of review, like, what would be more cost effective to go with a newer decking that doesn't need to be sealed, that doesn't need to be stained, but they are expensive from the beginning to install. I'd like to see like a price on that, and then a price on traditional wood decks.
Like a composite versus traditional.
Yeah,
lumber.
yeah, it's composite, so it's maintenance free. It's pretty it's close to, nothing's indestructible, but you don't have to worry about rust or staining. The way they're fastened, it's not a typical screw that could come up and God forbid cut someone or someone get hurt on it. So there is an additional cost to it, but I don't know. I'm not that familiar with that with the lumber and what the difference is in the cost there.
Yeah, I mean, I always like the composite because it's basically maintenance free, but knowing the abuse it gets in the winter, you're really not going to seek that benefit here. You have people, the snow blower, people shoveling, it's in certain sections, it gets a lot of abuse. I mean, in terms of cosmetics, there's, if you pressure wash it and repaint it, yes, it will look great, but still, as Joe said, it's not stable in certain areas. And I think the only real large section of rotting wood is by 88 through 90. There's nothing you can really do other than replacing the actual wooden boards. Everything was again nailed down and secured. We did some more steps that were kind of loose, and we try to just keep it going for until the least lumber market stabilizes and when there's availability and projects that we're doing. But I'm okay with getting someone an engineer possibly to look at it to make sure it is stable, because the sonotubes are shifted. And as I said, the old board, we used to kind of just piecemeal it together at the end of the year or end of the summer, kind of just do some kind of patchwork on it. So it's had a lot of patching over the years.
So we need a structural engineer to look.
Yeah, I think just to make sure that there's one or two concrete piers that I saw, they're a foot in, and generally the support underneath it should be in the center, because that's where most of the structure of the load structure that has to be to support the deck. I saw one of them that was a little far off the center, so I am concerned with that. So I'd like someone to take a review and see if there's any bracing. Now it could be as simple as just bracing it. They might ask you to just shore it underneath and and wouldn't be that expensive but it would certainly keep the deck up.
Okay.
Next, I'll go to the handrails and I'll go back to the preventative maintenance. I think I mixed up the slides here. The handrails, I have some photos in there. They're in pretty poor condition. Rust has eaten them up. I believe they're original. I've asked Nuno to look into a metal fabricator or for some design options to present to us. And we should also coordinate that with the local building department to make sure that we are up to ADA code, up to town code and multifamily code as well of the type of railing that we want to install. And that also would be a design. That would be something I'd want to, we'd want to see as a board to pick out a design for the property.
Does it have to be metal?
I think metal is structurally, the best and
I know, but
Yeah.
maybe to get us through.
yeah, I mean, I think the metal, you could, if there's a program to, to seal it and, scrape it every couple of years and repaint it, it could last a long time. This
Okay.
metal lasted 30 years. I don't know how much maintenance was put into it, but it's lasted 30. You want to hopefully get something for another 30 to 40 years.
It's a good goal.
Well, all right. Last, just some preventive maintenance and property recommendations based on walking through with Nuno at the property. Once, twice, we talked about there's some retaining walls and building concrete throughout the property that it pays to seal and caulk, because a small crack in a sidewalk today, if it's sealed, it could extend the life by multiple years and move our capital project needs further down the line, so we could properly budget for improvements like sidewalks and paving and asphalt. There is a large crack in one area of the asphalt that you said that was sealed recently?
With the actual asphalt itself?
Yeah.
No, that's been probably 7 years now.
Okay. Yeah. So if we were to put there's a crack seal, they call it a crack sealant that goes on the asphalt or goes on the pavement, and that'll prevent the salt from the winter, the freeze, water to get underneath there, and that'll just sealing that up could extend the life of the asphalt around it by easily 5 years. So you don't continue. That's how potholes eventually get created or cracks in the pavement. And I think Nuno had mentioned there was a project done about 6 or 7 years ago. It's just the right time to do some maintenance on that and maybe looking into to sealing. I think some of us as homeowners have probably sealed our driveways if we have pavement or asphalt in the driveway over the years, and that really extends the life and extends the distance between capital projects. That's just something to think about. We should definitely line stripe the property. There's a photo there. The ADA handicap spaces are faded. Some yield areas around the stop signs, and the line stripes for parking spaces are beginning to come faded. It's generally not an expensive cost, but it makes the property, when you see that fresh paint down, if you see it at a shopping center, sometimes it really makes the property look present much better. And it is a safety issue, obviously, next to a stop sign, and obviously you want to properly mark the handicap spaces on the property. And I believe the handicap emblem has changed since it was last performed, since the last time the property was had a line stripe and performed at it. So we'd want to do that as well. As far as landscaping, I really wasn't impressed with the landscaping at the property. I know it's just been approved for work to be done there, but we're in June, and mulching and weeding and cutting back on vegetation is really something you want to start to see around mid-April to May, the latest. You put mulch down at that time, and it presents much better into the fall and into the winter. There's a lot of bare areas. If you want to prevent people from, or deter people from feeling like it's the property, it makes the property look unkept, basically, is what I was looking for words there to explain it. But just a little bit of mulch, weeding, cutting back on the ivy, clear lines on the signs makes all the difference in how the property presents, and hopefully that, is noticed by the tenants at the complex and by people who visit as well. So I think, Nuno, I think you really have to work with the landscaper. I know it's a very basic contract of weeding and cutting the lawns, but I think they're lacking even in that area. So I would start to really follow up on their visits after they touch the property.
Now, the landscaper, the regular landscaper is different than the one we're doing the project on that Diana and Frank were on, correct?
No, it's the same. Dominic Ragnow.
It's the same one, okay. So he hasn't started with, is the project that we approved address any of the items that Joe has raised?
Well, yes. So some of the bare areas, we'll put some plantings down. So it does address some of the there's, spots that are just bare. So it should look a little bit better. But yes, I do agree. It is almost mid-July, June at this point, and he got a late start to the spring cleanup, so now he's paying the price, and so are we.
So we become, is he too comfortable with us, and we're sort of like the stepchildren, the last one on the list, or?
No, we're rather new to him, so I don't think he's too comfortable here, to be quite honest with you.
I drove by the other day. I saw some folks working. They were working away there. So I think it was last Saturday or I don't know.
Okay.
But they were cutting and cleaning and whatever just last week.
Yeah, they're there every week.
It's just some of the detailed, there are some landscaping companies, I mean, that do a phenomenal job with the basics of cutting and weeding, but when you have, one of the things I mentioned in Nuno is like the ivy will start attaching to a building. It could cause a problem. It could do some damage to the electrical lines. It could start coming so attached to the building that taking it off might damage some of the facade. It covers up key signage inside on the property. So branches that are overgrown could block stop signs or wayfinding signs, and that's just trimming that back really helps.
Sure.
Okay. I was talking to Nuno the first time I was on the property about a work order system for the complex, and he mentioned that the tenants leave a note in a box, and that's how the work orders are generally done, but otherwise they're calling him directly to tell them there's an issue. I really believe we need to improve that with better documentation. If we have a tenant where there's a litigation in the future and they say, well, you haven't made a repair to the apartment, and we're dependent on a piece of paper in a box, we might not have the documentation, where an email is as long as you keep it, and we could show response. Nuno could show they did respond to the tenant, or the super. Anybody who has access to the email can keep records and documentation of repairs, response time, and communications between the tenant and the property manager. It might take a while. Certain properties, people are comfortable. They don't, they might not want to go electronic, but after a while they'll get used to it, and it'll really have a better hold of the property, and we could also manage and know how many work orders are created and where we're having certain problems on the property. And with that, you could tie in a conditions report that you could train the super to do weekly, like a walkthrough, or all the illuminated exit signs lit up in the common areas, have you inspected where the fire safety equipment is, just things that I'm sure the super is doing, or whoever's on the property now is doing, but it should be documented, and that that someone did check it, and you could find your small problem today that might cost you very little money by doing a report like this, where if you don't inspect these things and don't follow up, it could cost us 10 times that and later on down the road.
What percentage of people have internet access on the site?
Not many. We've tried the Homix work orders at grandmanagement.com. We got probably one inquiry in a year, and we heavily advertised it, and we were heavily pushing it. And the people like the paper work orders, unfortunately.
People like to, pardon?
Is it
The paper work order system? We've tried. I mean, the demographics are starting to get a little bit younger, so we could probably try again. I have no issue trying.
Yeah, I would try, or even try the text. I mean, today you could probably text to the email as well. Most people text, or I mean, I just like the idea of there being some type of electronic copy, or documenting the paper that's there. It's instead of it staying in a file, maybe if the super could have a photo and possibly scan and send it, that you have documentation that was repaired. Because right now, if someone said, my sink's been leaking for 3 months, and somehow the super lost that paper in the shuffle, what do we say? Was repaired. It's the landlord against the tenant in that situation, where if you have documentation that it was repaired electronically, it certainly supports us.
So we're going to have to give some thought to how we do that, because we do have a tenant population that is not, they don't all have internet access, and many don't know how to use it. So we'll have to.
But there was a problem that we went over with that lady who sent in the thing, and with work orders. So there's a system somehow where she said things with Louis and things were getting priority was getting mixed up. And what was that?
So there's a work order system. It's basically very, it's sort of just a paper system, right? There's a mailbox with a blank work order, and then there's an incoming or pending work order mailbox, and you put them in there. And then after, when the super is done with it, he hands them a pink slip, and we keep the top two. Then it used to be every week I would go there, collect it, review all the work orders with him. And then I would obviously see this one took a day to get it, this one took 2 days. Like, why did this take 3 days? So we would track it that way. I never really saw strong favoritism. I think people there kind of have to understand there's emergencies that pop up, like a leak that takes precedent over, something not, a door not working in their apartment or something. So
we'll have to sort of figure out how to improve that system. I mean, right now we're in this situation where we don't really have a super, and we have a part-time, so, but it's a good thought. I have a thought with regard to that I'll come back to, but I want Joe to be able to continue his report.
So the best thing is the board and property management communications, and that's probably more me wanting to get a feel for what the concerns of the tenants are at the property. They're hard to do. I've done them in my career, where you do a town hall type of meeting with the property, where you say at 6 o'clock, and outside building 8, we're going to have a meeting to listen to our tenants and communicate with our tenants. Let them, obviously, we want to go in there, let them know there are some improvements coming. If there's, the gas line project is there, or talk about the windows in the pipeline and bring some positive news. Obviously, that'd be a great place to talk about the solar project as well. But then at the end, just a Q&A where you just, for any tenants who show up, and just just hear out some of their concerns on the property, gather a list, look at some of the things that they're complaining about. And sometimes they're very simple, so I've heard tenants complain about the simplest thing that didn't take a lot of time and effort to do. And it's great to show them that you can do that in a way to build trust and help the relationship between the property manager board and the tenants at the complex.
We might want to think about a meeting in the fall after we put together our plans. But in the meantime, when we were looking for people to serve, when the town was looking for people to serve on the housing authority, a town employee tenant submitted his resume, and supervisor called me, and she also spoke to Melissa. And our feeling at the time was that to actually appoint a tenant to the board would not be a good thing for purposes of privacy, because we have tenants who are in arrears. We had a super problem, but we don't want a tenant knowing that someone else is in arrears or having financial difficulty. But then the idea came up about, what about a tenant representative? So the town attorney is going to look into seeing if that's a sort of an appointed position we could create, and then that person could become more the facilitator for us to start to communicate with the tenants. He or she could come to the meetings. They'd have to leave the room when we were having a discussion of from a like personnel or an executive session, whereas to have a board member say you have to leave the room would not work. So she's looking into that, and then I'll come back to the board with the town attorney's thoughts about how it's done. Any thoughts about that idea?
You could see if there'd be a tenant liaison possibly, where they would have a regular meeting with Nuno and occasionally someone from the board about conditions on the property, like what they're kind of like what we're looking for from the whole, from everybody who lives at the property. If we had one voice, sometimes that's it's a lot easier to handle.
Right, and that's what the thought that we would start, because we have been thinking, Nuno's been doing a lot of time on the solar stuff. If we had maybe a tenant rep, so there could have been some on-site more solicitation of people to participate. That was just one example. Barry, you had when you were speaking, you were muted. So
no, what did they do with Parkchester regards to tenant representation on the boards, the management?
So the Parkchester is a condominium.
Okay.
So the individual, there were sponsor board members.
Right.
There was also individual board members, residential board members, and they would represent a cluster. So they would have a tenant who represented a cluster of 8 to 10 buildings, and
that's more of a committee thing when it's a condo.
Yeah, they sat on committees with the condo, but a lot of buildings do in Manhattan do have a tenant liaison who you have a month, depending on the need. It might be, we might find it needs to be done every 2 months. It could be every 3 months. In some situations, some problem, buildings could be every week.
No, I think it's a good idea, because I don't want to see that anonymous letter repeated. That situation. So we can avoid that somehow.
When you talk to Nancy, I guess we could talk tenant's representative, or we talk to Bill, or what was the other term that we used? Tenant liaison, which may obviate the need for creating an official thing. Joe, I think with your preventative maintenance, it seems to me like we should. I hear you saying that we need to do we focused on capital improvements, but maybe we haven't focused enough on the maintenance upkeep. And maybe we have to think about a better list of things to do and appropriating more money for ongoing maintenance so that we prevent hopefully some of the more costly capital improvements. Is that a fair sense of?
Yeah, you're spending less now. You're spending a little bit now to save a lot in the future. I've had situations where roofs were let go by boards or committees, and then years later, instead of just replacing the roof, you're replacing the decking underneath the roof, or the there's a hole through it. So it's had it been prevented and the work and it was performed and the funds were there early on, uh, spending 5,000 could save you 100,000 down the road.
Right.
Is what
Yeah, I think we're not poor. We have money to spend, and we will have more money to spend. Not that we should waste it, but we need to, maybe
standard preventative. Yeah,
money in our budget.
yeah. If it's there, if there's a crack in something that could take water in or cause a mold condition. I mean, think about it. I mean, if there was a super who was trained or knew how to, just seal a crack in a wall, the tube of exterior caulking could cost like $7, right? And you have the person there working anyway, could avoid an issue of thousands of dollars 2 or 3 years later. So that's one of my big beliefs, is that try to prevent as many items you can. You can't handle all of them. It's it's a property. There's too much. Even in a single family home, you can't prevent everything from every issue that comes up, but you certainly could try.
Nuno, are there things that we haven't budgeted for which you would like to see us have budgeted for or budget for in the future on a day-to-day basis?
I think we budgeted for the rails and the concrete work, patchwork, possibly repairs or sealing. We did budget for that already, and we budgeted for the gas. So I think that's pretty much really what's.
No, but I'm talking about more the preventative maintenance that he has on his list.
Well, I did a big walkthrough, and I think in the last year we've done a lot of preventative maintenance, some gates, we've done a nice chunk of them. But yes, there is still ongoing stuff that we need to tend to before it gets any worse.
Okay, and do we need generally thinking about budgeting more money for preventative and day-to-day maintenance than we have been?
No.
I mean, are you somewhat budget constrained by?
Not exactly. Right now, possibly yes. But once we don't have to pay that large sum every month, we can certainly redirect a lot more funding towards preventative and also larger capital improvement projects.
The project, the item 1 on Joe's list, all this open joints, returning walls, something with the summer coming. I think that's something that we should look into now. Does anyone have any thoughts about that?
What did you say, Dolores? What you said? I just couldn't hear what you said.
Okay, so on his preventative maintenance list, the first one that he had were open joints on retaining walls and looking at concrete, sealing, doing minor sealing and so forth to avoid any future maintenance. It sounds like that's not a big project, but something we ought to undertake.
I think we already approved, Nuno, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think, didn't we approve like $20,000 for the railings, steps, and concrete in the budget for this year?
No, this hasn't to do with railings. This has to do with open joints on retaining walls, cracks in the concrete, things that need sealing and caulking.
Well, a lot of that, the cracks in the cement come from the rails or in that adjacent area.
Yeah, just Dolores, I mean, Nuno can speak to this more, but it does seem like there's a big overlap from the projects that Joe identified and what we have already allocated funding for, which is great, because that means we're all aligned. But just like looking over the capital budget and the, you know, some of the money that's already been allocated, I think a decent chunk of the things identified in that report, you know, are high priority, and obviously the gas pipe, the deck, the steel railing steps and all that stuff, I think, you know, has been covered in the budget, but maybe I'm wrong on that. I think, you know, with
Yeah, some of it has, but I think going forward, we could be more aggressive on preventative things, even the jet the sewer lines out once a year. You know, if you clean out a main sewer line as preventative maintenance, they might charge you $1,000. But if that particular plumber has to come out at 2 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday, we're talking $5,000. So there's
Do that biannually already.
yeah, they're just things that should be done on the property. You know, and Nuno knows what they are. It just you know, having the funds there and having the work done.
I think, Joe, the only thing I think we haven't mentioned is that the retaining, it's like that railroad tie around where the water meter is. We obviously rectified the you know, the exposed kind of nails. We got that all settled, but I think that's a project that should be tackled. I think we should eliminate all of that existing railroad tie. They're all way past their useful life. You should build it a little bit higher and possibly put some reflective, you know, maybe some tapes and kind of flags around it, because, you know, I've been noticing a lot more traffic. People somehow are walking near it, and it's, you know, in the dark, it's kind of scary over there. Someone trips and falls in there. Yeah,
then I wasn't able to open that photo. I saw that you sent it to me, and I couldn't put it on the attachment, but that's something we should definitely get a proposal for and take a look at.
Joe, have we covered number 7, your recommendations for implementation schedule, or are you going to put that together separately?
Let me take a look. Sorry. Yeah, I think we could work on that with another walkthrough to the property, or work with Nuno on that.
Okay, and then if you send that to Barry, he'll look at the budget and see where we are in terms of that. In terms of money we might.
But some things we just don't know. We don't. I know, but right now we don't know what the windows are going to be. We don't know what a lot of it costs.
Well, we're not talking about the windows. We're talking about recommendations for some general maintenance that should be done now.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and it sounds like we have appropriated enough money in most cases, or we can appropriate it differently in terms of what's in the budget. Any questions?
That's fine. Nuno and I have been working on constructing the budget.
Okay.
We've been doing some budget work the last couple of days.
Okay, so adding this into it would be a good idea. Okay. Number 8 is approval of authorizations for ad hoc expenditures. So apparently, Nuno, you have authorization for $5,000, correct?
Per the last meeting, yes.
That is okay. So from what I can gather, and from when I was on the board, generally what happened was Sal was in charge of pretty much working on projects, working with Nuno, and he would authorize Nuno to do something on an emergency basis, and then the board would retroactively approve that. So what we've been thinking about is maybe there should be a number. I don't think we should continue with this ad hoc situation, because it puts the person who's making that decision, you know, at the mercy of the board, if you will, after the fact. So I asked Joe for recommendation of a number. So we're thinking if Nuno's at 5,000, what about the concept of Joe, who's going to be supervising maintenance, being able to authorize another 5 along with me so that he's not alone, or another board member if someone wants to volunteer. And then anything beyond that, we're going to have to call an emergency board meeting.
I'm fine with that.
Oh.
Barry?
I'm good. I'll agree or suggest it or second it, whatever I'm supposed to do.
Okay, so Diana moved and Barry seconded, and all in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Right. And I could, not to make more paperwork for myself or Dolores, but I think if we do that and it's emergency, I could, think I have some reports, like a general emergency report, so we could document it of why we did it with some, you know, with the invoice, some photos and some detail from the property manager to say we have it for this current board and for future boards. Why did we approve, you know, $11,000 at 2 o'clock in the morning? You know, because there was, you know, an emergency. There should be some type of report that is kept on.
Emergencies will arise once we do all the gas
Yeah.
lights. I think at least we'll have that covered. The last thing I have on the agenda is with regard to the solar project. So previously the board had, and I think I'm correct, asked that the common area electricity be covered under this the solar program, which is to again, it's the solar panels on the Hommocks rink, which the town has engaged a company to do and has a rental or payment system. And the town has prioritized the Hommocks Apartments, Washingtonville Housing Alliance, other low income and affordable housing, and they have authorized us to be able to use our common areas. So they sent a contract for me to sign, which apparently Nancy and Bill Maker had renegotiated over time. And I checked with Bill and he said it incorporated all his changes. It's a 20-year contract. I sent it off to everyone. It's the same one the town has entered into. It is, you can cancel on 60 days notice at any time without any penalty. And we are at this point to be guaranteed at least a 10% reduction in our bills. So, and I did write back to the woman who sent it to me asking for confirmation of that. Barry, you have some concerns about the contract?
Well, yeah, I didn't think the board should enter into a 20-year deal, but I know it's cancelable. But you know, what if something goes wrong with the whole deal?
If the whole, we have to separate ourselves from the town board. What we are in this capacity is a consumer.
All right. Okay.
We're just simply a consumer like any other apartment owner, dweller at a Hommocks and any other place. And we go back, if we don't like it, we cancel it and go back to Con Ed. I mean, we have no, nothing at stake.
You have no liabilities at all. Okay.
No, we have no liabilities. That's the town board and the Hommocks rink and the panels and so forth. We're just a unit owner.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay, so can I have an authorization to enter into that contract?
And Dolores, this is just for the actual complex, not for the individual.
It's for our common areas.
Okay.
The individual apartment tenants have to sign up themselves for participation. This is so we get that 10% benefit on power that we use for the common areas.
All right, so Nuno, you'll do that extra work if there's an extra step to.
Well, that was my next question. I know at one point they said it was gonna be 2 bills instead of like the one Con Edison bill we receive now. I mean, did they figure that out yet?
I think they're working on one bill. It should
Didn't
be.
they say, Dolores, it would be a year until they got it straight? They said it would be some period of time, I think, before they got it straightened out, but it'll be 2 bills for some period of time, a short period of time, and then it'll all be one.
And we have to do ACH payments, which I assume we do for some of our other things. Okay. So I don't think there's anything for you to do at this point, Nuno. I'll sign it and I'll get it back to Claire.
Mm-hmm. And I'll follow up with Claire to see if anyone signed up as well. I'll report back on that.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Wait, Dolores, did someone make a motion? I'm just trying to take minutes.
Barry made a motion and
I'll
Joe,
say,
Joe seconded. Thank you for keeping me on my toes, Diana.
Yeah, well, you want all of them in there, so I need to know.
But
who
they have to be in there, so I should be calling for the vote. So,
Okay.
any other items to be brought up before the
Oh,
meeting?
yeah, I have one. I already told Dolores, but I'm gonna be leaving the Housing Authority at the end of June. We're moving out of Larchmont. So I'll miss you guys, but I'll be here till the end of June and someone else needs to be secretary.
Yeah.
You guys
And
figure that out.
I'm going to talk to you, and you'll tell me everything you have to do, because I know you have to talk to LMCTV and so forth. Barry, the next meeting is the 28th, which is finances.
Right.
Are you planning on the auditors being present?
I'm hoping that they'll be here. I spoke to him on the phone the other day, and I think he's going to be here.
Okay, be here.
I don't know what, you know what, I don't, can you tell me what you think, or email me just what you think the agenda should be and have the auditors? I mean, I don't really know how much interest there is with the board and how much, it's a financial statement. I have a dispute with them, and I don't know. I think I'm working with Nuno on having better reports. Part of the problem is that we don't really have variance reports. He showed me a variance report today that was really good. I don't know why he can't distribute that every month with the monthly package. So, that's where I'm at.
Okay,
Okay.
we wanted a meeting to focus on finances. Maybe we don't need that special meeting, or maybe we should just have a general agenda and report into the various things that we discussed this evening, or we can hold off to, I don't think we should have maybe a July or August meeting. I don't know. So what's the sense of the board?
My suggestion, I don't know if I have enough substance for a whole meeting.
Okay, so I'm going to put back, Nuno, Frank's not with us. What is the progress that's being made on an addendum to your management agreement to cover the super services?
Frank hasn't been in touch with me at all.
Okay, all right, so I have to follow up with him on that. Okay, and so I'm going to keep the meeting of the 28th, and I'll put together an agenda, but I probably will maybe need, Nuno, you may want to add items. Joe, you may have worked on some of these projects with Nuno, add items. And Barry, also, you may want to have some topics discussed or make some reports about certain things.
Right, I'm going to try to have the auditors come. I told them we were inviting him, so.
So you want the auditors at the meeting, and then we have to get their email information, because Diana she sends off an email to LMC.
No, I know. I have it.
Okay, so you need to send that to Diana.
Diana, will you still be here?
I twisted over the phone. I twisted both of her arms.
Oh.
I'm staying through the end of June. Just
before I think it's the day before she moves.
I know Dolores is so charming and persuasive. She got me.
I will send you. I'm happy to send you that email.
Have to do an email.
And call him on the phone to confirm.
Okay, and Barry, shoot me an email about how I should word it on the agenda, name of the company, and okay.
I mean, what my concern is, how do I put a financial statement? When I hand somebody a financial statement, it's one thing, but how do I exactly do it through the chat? It's a bit.
Well, they should be. I'm not too good at this either, but they should be able to send the techie people tune in, but they should be able to send what they're going to present to the board, using each of the board members, using the town of using either the town of Mamaroneck Housing Authority address for me, and everybody else prefers to use their own, which is we determined was fine.
No, because I picked up statements from your house. I mean, I could email them to you or whatever, scan them in and email them to you.
Well, I think we should have the auditors do that.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay, because they're going to be presenting, so they may want to just do highlights of it or a summary of it.
Okay.
They can share their screens with you too, so you can see in real time in front of you what they're presenting.
I'll talk to them about that.
They're probably used to doing that. I assume that's how they've been presenting to all the municipalities in the past year.
Okay, all right. Okay, fair enough. All right.
Okay, any other items?
Doris, you want to meet on Zoom at the end of June? though?
I think so, because I don't think the town has yet to restore in-person meetings, so I assume it's gonna be Zoom.
Okay.
Okay.
Could I have a motion to adjourn?
I'm happy to motion to adjourn.
Joe, do you want to second it?
Sure, I'll second the motion.
Diana, I want to thank you for your service to the Town of Mamaroneck Housing Authority and the Town of Mamaroneck.
Yay.
Nice meeting you guys, and
We wish you well in your new home and your new community.
Where were
Thank
you
you.
going?
what?
Where are you going?
We're just moving to New Rochelle.
Okay, all right. Okay.
But we'll see you at the 28th for sure.
Okay. Bye.
Good
Bye.
night,
Good
everyone.
night.
Good night.
Joe, I'm gonna call you